Hey guys, welcome to my live. I'm so glad that everybody's here. People are coming in. I'm just getting up the chat. But tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about amniotic fluid. I've got TikTok down here and I've got my camera up here. I think that amniotic fluid sounds super, super easy. Let's see if we can bring you guys. It's the worst. But I want to say hi to everybody if I can. Hi. I don't even want to know what this looks like. Hello. If you guys have pregnancy questions, please ask them in the comments. I am sorry that this live was so kafoogled. My middle child actually moved out today. I just dropped him off at the airport as the flight was initially canceled. And then he's there. So tonight's live is about amniotic fluid, and I just did a post about what to do when your water breaks, and I really wanted to jump into that with you guys because I think it's really important information that if you don't have a lot of experience, it's not something that you would know about. So if you think your water has broke, first off, did it break? And I know you're like, how would I not know that? How would I not know that my water breaked? It sounds like we just turned a faucet on, water came out. It seems like it would be very, very clear. But the reality is it's not always that clear. Discharge changes later in pregnancy. Again, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I would be happy to answer. Discharge changes, there's more pressure on baby, and so there's just more going on down there, later on in pregnancy. So that can be super, super normal. And really quick, as we're talking about this, of course, I have to text my husband really quick. This is only for a term pregnancy. So if your baby is not due, this information is not for you. Hopefully that makes sense and is clear to everybody. So first off, did your water break? Are you sure? My pro tip for that is to put on a pad and lay down and 10 minutes and then get back up. If your water has broken, most likely you'll get a little gush of fluid again. If you're like, I don't want to wait 10 minutes, Hillary, you can try and cough. Just make sure to Kegel in advance because, a lot of times people think their water is broken, but in reality, it is peeing. Baby kicks their bladder and so they pee a little bit. Nothing to be embarrassed about, not unusual at all. And we do have a test that can tell the difference between the two. So that's not something that should make you nervous, but obviously nobody wants to be that person. I totally get that too. So those are some ways to tell if your water broke. So if you think your water has broke, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that nothing else has come out. Things that we're thinking could possibly come out would be a hand, foot, or the cord. And a couple of those are an emergency. So if you feel anything else in your vagina beyond just fluid, it could just be a little bit of mucus, sometimes some blood tinge. What a great life, right, everybody? If you aren't seeing any of those, if you think something might be in your vagina, you're not sure, you could take a clean hand, make sure you wash it and just check down there. Or, nothing came out. If something is in your vagina, you need to get your bottom in the air and put your head towards the ground. So you'd be on all fours, but then your head would go towards the floor and bum in the air. And then you need to call 911 because it could be an emergency. Okay. The next thing you need to think about is tacos. So taco is time. What time did your water break? A is amount. C is color. O is odor. So you're just noting all of those different things. This is just a quick scan. I promise you that if there's an odor, you will be able to smell it. It's not where you're like, is there an odor? I promise you, you will know. And then color, we might be looking if it's bloody, if it's really bloody, you need to head on in. You might get some blood tinge. If it just has a pink hue to it, it's good for us to know. Or is it brown? Is it green? Important for us to know. The next thing after you count your tacos is baby still moving. So, so you just want to make sure the baby's still moving, kind of their average thing. I'm a huge fan of kick counts. If you guys don't know how to do kick counts, I have under free resources a kick count cheat sheet on my website that you guys can check out that you might find super helpful. But you want to make sure baby is moving. If baby is not moving, or if baby all of a sudden is like thrashing and really, really different than what you normally feel, then again, both of those reasons would be times to go to the ER. The next thing we want to do is probably just put a pad on, because amniotic fluid, you guys might not know this, but most amniotic fluid is just baby pee. That is what most of amniotic fluid is made up of as you are in your third trimester. So baby pee, as we all know, just keeps coming out, right? And you should continue to have that too, which is why a pad on. A lot of people get kind of grossed out by feeling that fluid consistently coming out. And that totally makes sense, but it's nothing unusual. So changing your pad every time you go to your restroom would be important. Or if you're in the hospital, we put you on these things called chucks, or a lot of people think they're like puppy pads, to help absorb that fluid. Hello, welcome everybody. If you have questions, please go ahead and ask them in the comments. I'll be answering questions after we go through the beauties of amniotic fluid. So after you put a pad on, which you should change every time you pee, you should call your provider, because unless you know you're in active labor, like if things are going rip roaring all of a sudden at this point, then you want to just head into the hospital. But if that is not the case, then call your provider and see what they want to do. And I'm going to challenge you guys to, next time you have a prenatal appointment, ask your provider, what do I do if I want to get hold of you after office hours? What should I be doing? And so they can let you know. Please do that at your next appointment. Tell me in the comments if you're willing to ask your provider that at your next appointment, because I think it's going to be super, super helpful. And then your provider on the line, you're going to review your taco information with your provider. And then they're going to say, okay, you should just come on into the hospital, which is what we said for a long time. Or some providers anymore are saying, okay, well, you can hang out at home for a while if you would like to, which I am a fan of. Now, there's a difference between if your water breaks and you are in labor versus if your water has broken and you're not in labor. Now, studies do show that most people will go into labor within 12 to 24 hours of their water breaking. And so, hopefully you go into labor on your own. But if a lot of people don't want to be induced, and it would ultimately be basically an induction if your water has broken and you're not in labor. So that's something to think about, but it is an option. You can ask your provider, would it be okay if I stayed home? Now, a lot of that's going to depend on like how far your hospital is, if you're GBS positive, any other issues that you have during your pregnancy. So, and what other labor things you're experiencing, right? Symptoms. Now, the arch nemesis to a broken bag of water is infection. So that's the thing that we're going to be monitoring for in the hospital. We're going to be watching to make sure that you don't spike a fever. If you get any signs of having a fever, you know what those might be, the chills, ache in your back, things like that, then you're going to want to call your provider or head into the hospital, because that was a closed bag of fluid around that baby, and now it is open, and that means bacteria can just come up in there and make a home, which you definitely don't want to be doing. So all new parents should have a thermometer on hand. I recommend an axillary thermometer for newborns, and that can 100% be used for you as well. So another challenge I would have for you guys is to get a thermometer. I think that could be really helpful for you guys. But if you call your doctor, some of you might be like, let's get this labor going. I'm tired of being pregnant. And so if that's the case, once your water has broken, most hospitals will admit you to, and then they will likely, if your labor hasn't started already, will start a little bit of Pitocin. So yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, if you are pregnant, you should have a waterproof mattress pad on your mattress. I think that's super important. You're going to want it with kids. And it's necessary. I'll just put it that way, just to protect your mattress. But there are these things called puppy pads, or in the hospital, we call them chucks. And they're like plastic pads that are super absorbent that can help absorb if you pee in bed, your kid pees in bed, your water breaks in bed, things like that. So I think they can be really handy. This actually comes from a post on my pullingcurls.com website, and you guys can check that out. And I have those linked in case you have no idea what a puppy pad is. I think you can buy them at Costco. And they're super handy with kids, though. Yeah. So, but the good news about all of this is that if you ask your provider, hey, can I stay home for a little bit? You can always change your mind. You can ask them questions. And if you get at home and you start to get nervous and antsy, you can go into the hospital, make sure you're safe. And if you go into the hospital and you find out you're safe, you can always make the choice to go home. Like, you're just not stuck, in one situation. So I think that's what most of this boils down to. You can tailor your care to what you need, and you can make choices on your own. And a lot of times people feel like those are really difficult. And I think that can ultimately really improve births. The online prenatal class for couples, you can find it at onlineprenatalclass.com, is the best way to get prepared for your upcoming birth. And I'm just here to tell you guys that prepared couples birth better. So if you guys have any questions about that, I would love to answer it in the comments. And that ends my spiel on amniotic fluid. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. I will have like a more polished video of it coming out soon, but that's to get you guys started. Does anybody have questions? We have a few people here. If you guys have questions, I would love to answer them in the comments. I'm going to give you guys just a couple of minutes. In case we haven't met yet, hello, I'm Hillary. I'm the pregnancy nurse. I've been a nurse since 1997. I have 20 years of labor and delivery experience. And I'm just here to help you guys get prepared and not get you scared for your upcoming hospital birth. I think there's far too many people who get scared for their upcoming birth, and that's just not what I want for you guys. I want better for you. So thanks you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys being here.